This is Money, Motivation, and Mike, and I am your host, Michael Wainwright. In charge of all the controls is Jason Wright. And hello to you, world. This is the show that can change your life, will change your life, and has changed your life. You can find us always at mx3.vip. You can always contact us at info@mx3.vip and on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@mx3podcast. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of all of our new content, which comes out every Monday morning around 9 o'clock. Okay, Jason, here we got a couple things here that I'm going to work on today and talk about on our show. But first of all, I want to talk about, are you familiar with, in one word, Ohtani?
No.
Baseball player of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Never heard of him.
He played for the Los Angeles Angels, or the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, I think is what they called him at one time. He is the first Major League Baseball player with 50 stolen bases and 50 home runs in 1 year. And I remember back in 1988 when Jose Canseco was the 40-40 man, 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases. So now Ohtani is 50-50 man. So back on September the 19th, Ohtani hit 3 home runs and stole 2 stolen bases to get to 50-50 in Miami at Depot Park, where they're playing the Miami Marlins down there. So what leads me into this is baseball fan, and this is according to The Athletic, and of course it's been on all your sports news. Baseball fan files lawsuit against man who ended up with Ohtani's 50th home run ball. Request court auction. This ball is going up for auction right now at Goldwyn Auctions. Mm-hmm. Starting bid is $500,000.
Wow.
So if you want to get in on the bidding, Jason, you need to call up and probably give some financial information so that you can participate.
They may have to remove a few zeros for me, though.
All right. Attorney for 18-year-old baseball fan Max Mathis filed a lawsuit against Goldwyn Auctions and the man who ended up with the Los Angeles Dodgers star Ohtani's 50th home run baseball, disputing who rightfully possessed the ball in the stands. How about that? In addition to the lawsuit, Mathis attorneys filed an emergency temporary injunction to prevent the auction of Ohtani's home run baseball by Goldwyn Auctions. The suit argued that Mathis, the plaintiff, who attended the September 19th record-setting game against the Miami Marlins at Lone Depot, I call it Depot Park, it's actually Lone Depot Park, was the first person to possess the ball after it landed in the outfield seats. Per the lawsuit, Mathis grabbed the ball with his left hand, but a gentleman named Chris Belansky, one of the defendants, wrapped his legs around Mathis' arm and wrangled the ball out of his hand.
Wow.
The suit also referenced the video posted on X of the moment the baseball landed in the stands, where Belansky and Mathis tussled before Belansky got full control of the ball and waved it in the air. According to the lawsuit, Belansky had indicated on social media he intended to sell Ohtani's home run ball. Since then, Goldwyn Auctions has acquired the baseball and announced it will auction off the ball beginning Friday. Like I say, $500,000. So Mathis is seeking civil damages in excess of $50,000 and probably wants the baseball back as well. So there you go. There you go. So once again, on September the 19th, Ohtani made history by slugging 3 home runs. Actually, I did not realize this. I thought he hit 48, 49, and 50. He hit 49, 50, and 51 in that game. And stole some bases and was the first member to join the 50-50 club in the same season. The 50th home run came in the 7th inning. So we'll continue to follow that. We'll see how that goes. But nevertheless, they've got an injunction. They are going ahead with the auction, according to the article here, like I say, by The Athletic. And with that, the judge is going to rule before the end of the auction so that we can have a resolution, I guess, or at least the start of a resolution. Who knows? But the judge's decision, he's going to have a hearing next week, and then they will get to the end of that before the actual auction ends. So auction continues on, but a judge is going to rule for this particular situation, and you just think that baseball's flying into stands is no big deal, and apparently it is. And so somebody's going to be happy and somebody's going to be sad.
Well, the process some of these baseballs go for whatever reason. $500,000 starting point. That's going to get a lot of people's attention.
They mark these balls with whatever invisible holograms in there. Mm-hmm. They mark these balls when they get to monumental moments like this. So when that ball is in the stands, Major League Baseball can identify that ball as the actual ball that was pitched and hit for a home run.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah. You think everybody's going to be showing up with baseballs. No, I'm the one that caught it. No, I'm the one that caught it. On and on and on.
Makes sense.
Yes. All right. What's at stake for investors in the 2024 elections? How about that? And information that I have obtained comes from our good buddies over at Wells Fargo. Okay. House outlook for 2024. In the House, the focus will be on races considered toss-ups and or crossovers, congressional seats that voted for one party in the 2020 presidential election and another one in the 2022 House elections. Of the 12 Republican toss-up seats, all are in congressional districts that voted for Biden in 2020, while 4 of the 10 Democrat toss-ups are in districts that voted for Trump in 2020. Interesting stuff. 8 of the Republican toss-up seats in 24 are in Democratic strong holdings in California and New York. 4 in each state, as a matter of fact. And based on the data, Democrats have an early edge. Now, this is the polls, whatever the polls are worth. Democrats have an early edge towards reclaiming the House, according to the polls. So the potential impact of the White House bid on congressional races. So, historically, every time there has been a president elected, there's been a strong pattern of our economy going up. You would think that, right? Since 1992, the winner of the presidency has gained House seats exactly half the time. 96, 2004, and 2008. And 2012, excuse me. Presidential winners lost ground in the House in 92, 2000, 2016, and 2020. Now, why whenever I said usually the economy gets stronger after a presidential election, well, there are some tax cuts that are up to either be it's going to continue or they're going to be cut, and this is all obviously based on what goes on in the House and the Senate. So a little bit about what happened there in the House. Now, how about the Senate outlook for 2024? Democrats currently hold a 51-49 majority in the Senate, with 1/3 of the seats up for re-election this cycle. 34 Senate seats, Jason, of 100, up for re-election. Democrats and Democratic-aligned independents occupied 23 of those 34 seats, while Republicans, obviously, they're defending 11 seats. All the states Trump carried in 2020, it's expected a combination of there's retirements, there's toss-up seats. Wells Fargo believes that the Senate will likely be controlled by the Republicans after it's all said and done. So a few key takeaways from the Senate and the House. The Democrats, now this is all according to opinion and hearsay with the polls, and I think that people on this show has figured out I don't think a whole lot about the polls. Matter of fact, I don't even think they should have polls. Democrats have a better map than Republicans to take the House, while Republicans should fare better in the Senate race. All according to Wells Fargo. Now, what if the Democrats sweep? Tax cuts for higher income individuals likely would not be extended, as I just discussed. Lawmakers probably would push for corporate tax increases to cover middle class tax cuts if the Democrats sweep. Now, this is all based on past performance that goes on in the House and the Senate. If the Republicans sweep, obviously the outcome would likely extend the expiring tax cuts. Yet, many constituents worry about budget deficits. We would expect the GOP. How many people you think don't know what GOP stands for?
95%.
I would say that is correct when you're talking about the grand old party. GOP majority to target offsets on electric cars. Inflation Reduction Act. And spending over tax cut extensions. Now, how about a split party government? Democrats retaking the House while Republicans take the Senate, which is really the most likely scenario according to what everybody's saying. Hopefully they will compromise, and hopefully the two parties will extend the tax cuts in return for middle class tax relief and subsidies. That's kind of what, according to what Wells Fargo is thinking is going to happen in the House and the Senate, and where we're going to go with that from there. 33% of Americans approve of President Biden's job of performance, and 28% economic conditions of Biden's performance. Okay, 28%. Trump ended his term with a 34% approval. In 2020. 73% of Americans view a strengthening economy as the top policy priority for Washington, D.C. to address this year. Now, how about here? Let's go back over, and I want to give you a little more information about what you could expect from your economy moving forward. Jason, over the last 50 years, I'm going back to when Richard Nixon was elected in 1972, and we'll just take it through President Obama. And because we have the last 8 years candidates involved, of course, one of them has stepped aside for his vice president. So we won't even get into that. Since 1972, who do you think the best average annual return on your dollar? The best average annual return on your dollar. So your dollar, you have it, and the economy went up 5% under this presidency, and on and on and on. Who do you think has the best average since 1972 of all the presidents?
Is it Reagan?
Ronald Reagan, the actor. 17.4% in 1980. He takes office. And 17.4%. In his next 4 years, 1984, the annual return was 14.4. Now, who do you think has the lowest of all those presidents?
Bush or Obama?
Which Bush?
Last Bush.
Bush number 2?
Yeah.
George W?
Yeah.
George, remember the other one's George H.W.
Yes.
Herbert Walker.
That's correct.
And then George W. You would be correct, sir.
All right.
In the year 2000, George Bush, annual return, 1.9%. Woo!
Incredible.
In his second term, starting in 2004, he did increase to 6.5, which, oh, by the way, was the second lowest over the last 50 years. 2008, you also mentioned Obama. After Bush, Obama in 2008, 7.1%. There you go. Now, you mentioned George H.W. You got to remember, he was on the coattails of Ronald Reagan. 16.5% in his only term, excuse me.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people look at the 90s and the Clinton days as being good, and I do as well. 92, 12.5%. 96, 10.1%. Pretty good stuff right there. All right. Average annual return going all the way back to Richard Nixon, 7.9%. That one's where it comes in right after Bush number 2, George W., and Obama's first term in office. So that's a little interesting on your dollar coming to you and what you could expect moving forward in the near future. Now, what if you remember, and we'll go back here and we'll talk about those difficult times that, well, actually were the fourth most difficult according to the charts we have here, according to Richard Nixon. And in 72, Watergate scandal comes up, and the Vietnam War drags on, which obviously a lot of people didn't like. If you remember, and I've always said that this is the Iran hostage. That was a big deal in 1980. And I've always said that Jimmy Carter did a lot of work there on getting the hostages freed, but the hostages weren't freed till after Ronald Reagan took office, and Ronald Reagan got all the credit. And even according to this rule right here, I mean, this chart that we have going on right here from Wells Fargo, Iran hostage crisis drags on and it happens, and Reagan takes care of it. And then you may not remember, we have talked about the Olympics on here, of the Olympic boycott and the Cold War divide of 1984. So a lot of good stuff there. Very, very good stuff. With Clinton, because we know from 92 to 2000, we like those days. You remember the Los Angeles riots. He walked right into that in 1992. And then 19 servicemen were killed in the Saudi Arabian bombing. UN armed inspections repeatedly for Iraq. Those are some things that were going on in the Bill Clinton days. That was part of what created our inflation or our return on our dollar. I got you another interesting question here. And I like asking these questions of you because you have a lot of knowledge, and not even you sometimes know the answers. And just like you said of the GOP and what does that stand for, you threw out 95%, and I don't think you're that far off. How many people you think could even remember who President Obama defeated in 2012?
Mitt Romney, wasn't it?
Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
Who was it in 2008? That's my point. John McCain.
I was searching for his name. I had his face in my head.
And frankly, I went back and I mean I know that Bush and Gore had that election in 2000 that was tight in the Broward County and the deal down there, and Jeb Bush having to sign off on the Florida election a month afterwards that gave his brother the presidency. And so 2004 you come along, who was George W. trying to reelect against John Kerry. And, I forgot about John Kerry too. And that was only 20 years ago, where you get back into 1960, Nixon running against Kennedy, in 76, Carter running against Ford, who was never elected to office, took the office of Richard Nixon. You know, on and on and on. Those things that happen. And remember, in '84, Walter Mondale, Geraldine Ferraro, female vice president, first one ever on the ballot. And it was going to be very difficult to beat them. Ronald Reagan had that. He had that glamour about him. And at that time, 1980, 1984, everybody remembered him as a movie star. And back in those days, that worked real well.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things that were going on during those presidentials. And we all know that the House, the Senate, and most importantly, the White House all affects our economy. And now you can revert back and you can see how some of those things affected your dollar as you have went on in life. From 1972 all the way back to 1936. And FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, very, very popular president, served 2 terms. No, that's incorrect. The only time over the last 37, and I was going back to Roosevelt, but the only time that we had a high return that matches what happened with Reagan was in 1952 under Dwight David Eisenhower from Denison, Texas. 15.8% annual return. And he came back with 11.9 in his second term. So there you go. And I beat down on George W. a while ago with 1.9. In Nixon in 68, it was 4.8. So that would be the second lowest over the last, from 1936 to where we are, the almost 90 years, 88 years of looking at presidential elections and how they affect your dollar. Now, one last thing here, since we've talked about it appears maybe, you know, it's funny that I talked about investments on the back end of going and trying to buy a baseball for $500,000 or starting out bid at $500,000. If you recall last week, we were talking about school and cell phones and the kids that go to school today. And I first want to point out here that this information is from the NPR. And I don't know if you know this or not, back in 2022, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, with also support from Connecticut Rep. Rosa DeLauro, asked the Government Accountability Office, like I say, in 2022, to take on this report I'm fixing to give you. And here's what that particular office, the Accountability Office of the government, came up with. And this is a report that just came out last week. Didn't have time to cover it last week. Watchdog finds Black girls face more frequent severe discipline in school than any other race, color, religion, gender, etc. How about that? All right. Over the course of this 85-page report, now remember, the GOA, the Government Accountability Office, says it found that from kindergarten to 12th grade in public schools, Black girls had the highest rates of so-called discipline. The study found that during the 17-18 school year, Black girls received nearly half of the punishments, even though they only represent 15% of the girls in public schools. According to the report, Black girls accounted for 45% of out-of-school suspensions, 37% of in-school suspensions, and 43% of expelled for actions of disrespect, disruption, etc. going on. Now, the question is, and I think this is always the question, was that just cause with their discipline? Or are they being singled out? That would be the question for our viewing and listening audience to think about. And we'd love to hear from you at mx3.vip. And of course, you can always contact us, info@mx3.vip. Now, Jason, I'm going to ask you a question. If I got into that, just like we've gotten into some talks over the past, do you think the general public would think that would be the findings of the report from the government on who causes the most disruption in public schools?
I think the majority would.
We're talking about the white male, the black male, the white female, the black female, the white Hispanic, the male Hispanic, the male female Hispanic, and then other. And frankly, in our area, with Oklahoma bordering, you're talking about the Native American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it'd be a close majority. I mean, you're considering a lot of multiple choices there.
Yes, you are.
So, but with that said, I think the highest portion of it would find that.
I'm not going to disagree. Obviously, there's nothing to disagree with. This is a report, once again, put out and started up by former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and then obviously later supported by Rep. Del Laura out of Connecticut, that the Government Accountability Office took this report on, and 2 years later they issued their findings, and there you go. So, once again, find us at mx3.vip on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@mx3podcast. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified of all of our new content, which comes out every Monday morning around 9 o'clock. I didn't get into our numbers of subscribers. We went over that 70,000 number. We're still over that 70,000 number, and we'll continue to climb because of the listeners, the viewers, and our wonderful audience that we have out there. So until next time, continue to live your life the right way.